On today's episode, we are going to be answering a question from a listener. When you are in conversation with a friend and they are putting on a happy face, is what she describes it. And I also see in culture now and in media people talking about toxic positivity, how we can't just show up as ourselves. We always have to put a new label of positivity on whatever we are experiencing. So that is what we are talking about today. And welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife and partner, Phyllis Hill. Together, they have created the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And I'm so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, first of all, thank you for our listeners for sending in questions. It gives us great content, to be honest. And it's always fun for us to even talk about it before we do the podcast. And it brings a lot of great discussion. And, one thought of even that, I was thinking back to when I was running my company, and during that time, the word stress was thrown around so much by people. So much so that I just avoided the word altogether. And it was during that season when I was really learning how to tune into what was happening for me, tuning into just that side. Because, we've talked about this before, like the word stress. Oh, I'm so stressed out. We don't really know what that means if someone is saying that to us, because we could interpret it for ourselves. What does stress feel like in my body? How do I, define that word? But that doesn't mean that even applies to the person who's now saying it to you. And I don't know if you've ever been in conversation where, you're with a friend. For me, I'd be with a girlfriend and she'd go, "Oh, I'm so stressed out." And your response is, "Oh, me too. I am so stressed out." And then it's almost like neither of you are hearing each other, because you're almost like, "Yep, got it. I know it," but you really don't know it. And just saying the word doesn't even release anything from your body. So the science behind it is what I think the power comes in. So in this question that we got, and did you already read it?
I haven't.
Okay, so we're going to answer a question. You're just kind of giving an overview. I think reading it is really helpful.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of dive into how we interact with our relationships at times. And this is such a great example of what happens way too often in relationships.
For sure. All right. This listener said, "Do you have insight to navigate conversations with others who consistently dismiss themselves in their feelings? Someone shares what's going on for them, and I feel as though I'm following their energy with you, but when I do, they say, 'But it's all good,' and say the complete opposite of what they had first said. It feels as though they are dismissing their own experience to switch to a positive perspective around what they are experiencing, instead of allowing themselves to feel the initial core emotion. What I have found is that it's really challenging for me to continue oohing them because of their opposite responses. When I ask the follow-up question, 'What is happening for you?' they get frustrated. It seems like they're putting on a happy face of life is good, and I can't complain and just need to stay positive."
Wow.
Yeah, that's, I think, and I don't know how this always plays out for people. I've seen it before where someone starts to share, and then it's almost like they catch themselves and realize, "Oh, wait a minute. A, I've just shared too much," or B, "I'm about to be judged. Oh my word." And so they jump into this, "Oh, but life is good. And, I have so much to be thankful for." And then they have kind of left the room you started in. And it may be out of self-protection. It may be fear of judgment. It may be what they've experienced in the past where, people have told them, gratitude journal and just be thankful. That's what, here, let me answer that,
Right.
kind of thing. And so we kind of have been conditioned
Right.
in that, where it's not okay to really feel it and to really express it. And, I know in my own journey, like I think about in the past of being judged, in just when you're vulnerable, when you're honest, that everything isn't great, or in this moment I'm just sad.
Yeah.
And I love that this person wrote in this question, because she's kind of saying, how can I help my friends, how can I help the other to really be okay? And it sounds like she's using the question, what's happening for you, and the person is not liking that question. So you go, okay, well then what do you do with that? How do you show up for a friend when that question isn't helping?
Yeah, and it helps us to understand that people have been given the message. And my experience has been this is more typically in a faith-based setting, especially Christian-oriented, that, you're just supposed to choose joy all the time. I see some people that aren't faith-based, it's they have a secular positioning, but also say, just, be filled with joy all the time. But so they've been given that message perhaps hundreds of thousands of times, literally. And so if you say to me, 100,000 times that this is a microphone, and then I find out actually this is a kangaroo, I'm not going to believe you, because that doesn't make sense to me. I've always known that this is a microphone for my whole life, and now you're telling me it's a kangaroo. That would just sound silly to me. That's just not true. So people have been given these messages that you're just supposed to choose joy. Everything's supposed to be happy. But you think about the science of that, how bizarre it would be. Our 12-month-old starts crying, and we walk in the room, and we say, well, you need to focus on some positive things. It's like, what? Find out what's happening with that 12-month-old. But we've been given that message so many times that it's very difficult. We're very uncomfortable even acknowledging and much less embracing sadness or shame or guilt or fear. And so the message is out there: choose faith, not fear. I'd like to meet the people that are choosing fear. I've never seen those people. Nobody's choosing fear. It doesn't make any sense. But we've been given that message so many times that it's just become a default. And so people share something authentically at the core, and then they go, but it's okay because, life is good and my children are healthy, therefore, which doesn't make sense, because for me, if I cut my left hand and I say, but it's okay because I didn't cut my right hand or my foot or my leg or my head, you'd be like, well, yeah, but you have a cut on your left hand. Well, no. I'm just focusing on the positive. I'm focusing on all of the non-cuts that I didn't get today or something. Makes no sense.
Right.
Just we need to be able to process through what's happening with us.
Totally. And I think a large portion of this message for our generation is coming from social media as well. That if you look at the people that exploded on social media early on, they're all the smiley, pretty photos, aesthetically pleasing, super positive energy. You don't get as much attention, at least earlier on, if you're like, man, I'm really having a bad day. Everything was very much about presenting as joy, even if your life was crumbling behind the scenes. So I think that that's conditioned us as well to present as joy, even if our life is crumbling behind the scenes, because we get those dopamine hits of the double clicks, the hearts, the comments, oh, you're so cute and your kid is so cute, when you know good and well you were crying in your closet 5 minutes before you took that photo. And it, I think, has just given us to where even Wes, a couple of years ago, we were talking about our podcast. We podcasted 2 years ago, and he was like, no, Tier, people don't want to hear the negative. Wow. People don't want to listen, because it was during COVID and I was in a really bad place. He was like, people don't want to hear about you being in a bad place. And he's not wrong. People don't want to hear about that. But then how can we show up as ourselves without adding this layer of, extra positivity that doesn't exist?
Well, yeah. And I'm actually, I wouldn't have gone there myself, but I'm really glad that you brought up, like social media or another platform where it's very different than the actual one-on-one
One-on-one.
relationship. And
Yeah.
it's super important that we have people in our lives
Yeah.
where we are safe to be who we are. And it's interesting, this past weekend I went to a birthday party of a dear friend, and she was turning 40, and she did a really cool thing. She actually brought a gift for each of us, and then she shared what she loves about each of us. And I was one of the older people in the group, and but she shared that when we met, what changed her life that I brought to it was that I guess I was the first one in her life that said, I want to be with you when you're having a bad day. And she said she had never received that message before. She had always received the message, you are the funnest person, you're the life of the party, you're always happy. And those messages she took as, no one wants to be around me unless I am able to be the life of the party.
Yeah.
And so when she would have bad days and had something planned with a friend, she would cancel because she's like, they're not going to want to be with me. I don't have the energy to be the life of the party in this moment. And one time it came out, Glenn and I were going over to their house to hang. And I think she was trying to cancel on me because she was having a bad day. And I'm like, oh man, all the more we're coming, and then I just remember standing in her kitchen going, I love every piece of you and part of you. And I want to be with you when you're having a bad day. And it was so transformative for her. And I know that's why she brought it up at her birthday party. And I think, oh my goodness, what have we done as a society that communicates that you're not worth my time or friendship unless you're happy?
Yeah.
And I think that message is so strong for people.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's like we simply need to question our friendships for sure. And of course, in this particular email in this question, this person is wanting to be a good friend to her friend. She's going, I want to hear the bad or the sad but it's how do we convince other people that we want all of you? We want that part of you. And, it may have to be in a time where it's an actual conversation, where you're able to say to them, I love all of you. I love the sad of you. I love when you're hurting. I want to be there with you. I don't need you to be happy all the time.
Right.
And, to be able to communicate just how important that is for that person. That's the thing too. I think that it is exhausting to think we always have to be happy, because that is not human. Our brain is firing all these emotions that we continue to stuff, which we know the body keeps a score. It's so unhealthy. And eventually your body is just going to break down because you're constantly stuffing down the sad or the hurt or the lonely,
Right.
the fear, and we're not actually talking about
we
it.
don't do that with babies. We don't say to a 12-month-old, an 18-month-old that, no, you've got a quota. You can be sad twice today, and then that's it. We just help them process through very, very quickly, which that's what we older babies could do if we would just embrace the emotion, recognize it as a consultant. The messenger is just telling us something. We want to get the message from it. I did want to say, and I do definitely think that social media has multiplied this, but part of our narrative was about 10 years into our marriage, we would be in a group setting, mostly around church people, and somebody would go, oh, the Wilsons are divorcing, and somebody would go, oh, they had such a good marriage.
Yeah.
And people genuinely believed that they had a good marriage on Tuesday and they filed divorce papers on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And especially from a faith-based perspective, because we were mega fundamentalists, we thought Satan was that tricky. Everything's great with this couple on Tuesday, and boom, Satan snuck in Wednesday morning and put stuff in their coffee, and then they divorced on Wednesday, and not even realizing. And the reason is because people were faking, and we were faking. Everybody was faking. And so we knew not to present your authentic self. Therefore, people thought, oh, Phyllis and Glenn, that's such a great marriage. Come to find out they're struggling. Who knew? How'd that happen on a Wednesday when they were doing so great on Tuesday? So we were trained in that. Again, I think social media multiplies it, but I'm not sure but that this has been true for a long time. Maybe
Oh,
many
totally.
generations.
Yeah. I do think it's been true for a long time. I've just seen it so evident in how it is now, just that dopamine of the double click of showing like your happy life and then growing a following, growing your income because you're presenting as this perfect person. So now when you are in those real one-on-one conversations, you don't know how to be anything but that perfect presentation of a person. And I do think that's such a beautiful example, Phyllis, that you gave of how this girl can approach her friend in conversation. If this is a friend that she is safe with you, don't say this to someone if you're just saying it for fun, like a true friend that you want to hear their bad days. They are safe with you. For in those moments to say, "Ooh, yeah, I hear that." And know that your pain is safe with me. You don't have to mask it with anything else. I do love to hear your joy as well, but you don't have to put any other layers on top of your pains or your fears or your sad when you're with me. You're safe.
I would encourage, and of course, every human is unique, every relationship's unique, so it's really hard sometimes to know all the intricacies, the nuances, the layers of this relationship. But I would encourage the person that emailed to just ask, so help me get what happens for you when you always put a positive spin. It seems like I've observed that you'll share something authentically at the core, but then it always has to turn positive, that, whatever, God's in control, or my kids are healthy, or something. Help me get what happens for you there, because I think I might be missing some of that. And again, the power of the third phrase to say to them, I'm missing it. I need your help. I'm in a position of vulnerability. I'm asking for your assistance in getting this, as opposed to going, you need to explain this more authentically. You are not being an authentic person. You need to share with me at the core. You can't sell that to anybody, but to say, I think I might be missing something, and you are so important to me. I want to get it. Could you help me get it better? Because I'm a little slow. I miss stuff sometimes. Could you help me get it? That changes the whole dynamic, the whole equation.
Yeah.
I think, authenticity has to start with you. And that is
Right,
part of
that's a
it
great
too,
point. Yeah.
is I want relationships where I can come to the table and I have a lot of relationships. So it's not that they're all safe for me.
Right.
Like there's times when I have, especially probably girlfriend groups that have been around for a really long time, where we may do a weekend trip together, but I kind of already know with most of them, we're just going to be pretty shallow and we can have a great time and watch movies and play games and eat good food. But this is not a group that really wants to be authentic.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting for me. So I have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. I lose a lot of identity when I'm in those particular groups because I'm very blessed to have really authentic friend groups. And so those feed my soul, and that's a really fun place for me to be. But it's kind of this, there are times, and for a lot of people, it's their families, right? They go to grandma's for Thanksgiving. There's 50 other relatives there, and no one really wants to be authentic. And so it can be just exhausting because your interactions, you're seeing so many of these interactions where, someone starts and then they shut it down and they, then give you the positive or whatever. And those can, that's all around us, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a one-on-one relationship where you really want to be there for that friend and you want to be that safe friend, then it is this, I want to share my pain with you. It's the authentic side of you that's got to come out as well. But also just to realize, man, this friend has been probably wounded countless times in her past, when she did try to show up authentically and she was corrected. And it may have started when she was, 8 years old, who knows, where she may have grown up in a house where there was no tolerance for that. And there was, always the, the reminder of the positive that we're supposed to, acknowledge or say. And I think, I know for me, what has really helped me over the years is to remember the science behind it. Like, God created my body. There's, like, he didn't make a mistake in the region of my brain that fires sad, lonely, hurt, fear, guilt, shame. Like, all of those emotions are real, and he did that on purpose. So I know for me, it was like a shocking revelation when I was about 50, because I thought, as a believer, joy is the only emotion that God expects us to have, and to find out that is just not true. He created our bodies, and we have these emotions that fire in our brain because he put them there on purpose.
Right.
And they're our guides. They are tuning us in. And it's like, wow, I just missed all that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are more from where I was before, and just like, no, that's not tolerable. And you're going to be labeled as, she's always complaining.
A Debbie Downer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even terms like that. Where did that term come from? Debbie Downer. Well, that sticks, right? That sticks in the mind of, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. So I'm going to always put on the smile, and I'm going to always show up in this setting, and make sure, and you almost can, it's like such a sad reality that many of us think is what we have to do.
They're both extremes on the spectrum, like people that feel like they have to live in joy all the time, and people that don't know how to identify the joy, so they present as living in the sad all of the time. And as you were presenting that a second ago, Glenn, talking about how she shows up with her friend, of asking the friend, what is happening with you? Why do you feel like you have to show up this way? It kind of hit me that we talk about joy, that is all of our goal. Our goal is to go to joy.
Yeah, it feels good.
It feels good. And so I think as a society, a part of this is that we have been conditioned. We are so uncomfortable living in pain, living in sad, living in fear. We have been taught from a very, very young age to not, no, you're not hurt. Move on.
You're okay.
You're okay. You're okay. You may have skinned your knee. You may be bleeding, but it's just a little blood this time. You're okay. We are so not good at being in the uncomfortable that we are only trying to find that joy. And I recently saw the Barbie movie, which, however you feel about it, for me, I absolutely loved it. It was very, very powerful for me. And it was an incredible connection codes movie. And there was a moment that she said that humans are so uncomfortable in their humanity that we make up terms like the patriarchy or toys like Barbie so we can try to cope with the uncomfortableness of being a human. And when she said that, I was weeping, because that is spot on. We don't know how to just be sad for a few minutes or have fear, and how to share that without feeling like we have to mask it with the positivity.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true. We feel uncomfortable with pain, but the path to joy is actually through
the pain. Right.
And you simply cannot, of course, Phyllis always shares that so powerfully, what happened to her body. Her body said, I'm done, I quit. She didn't sleep for 6 days, which is not human. You're not supposed to do that. And her body was just done. It didn't know how to function anymore, just gave up. So we're not designed for this. And the problem is it's such a slow process, because people ignore emotion for a day, a week, a month. They're like, what, I'm fine. Well, it's going to catch you. And again, you may be 50 before it catches up with you, but it will catch up with you. And if we don't learn to process the emotion, and not even to mention all that's happening in the body, unprocessed emotion compromises the immune system. So now all the healing that's supposed to be happening in your body, 94% of it happens while you're asleep, is not happening. And which again, for one night, doesn't matter, no big deal. 2 nights, you're fine. 3 nights, you're fine. That's going to add up over weeks, months, years. And then it often is too late because these debilitating illnesses have gotten a foothold, a strong foothold in your body, and your immune system can't catch up after that. So our objective is not to get people to be whatever you want to call it, Debbie Downer. I think I heard negative Nancy one time.
Yeah.
But the process through it, which is what we do with our 12 months old. We come in, we go, oh, buddy, what's happening? And we tune into them and we process it through with them and we meet the need within 20 seconds, 30, a minute. Well, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Not telling the child, stop crying, focus on the joy, which would make no sense at all because we're supposed to be tuning into them. Their core emotions are giving them a message and they're giving that message. Pre-language, they're giving us a message and we tune into them. I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I was always amazed with Phyllis, and she was a stay-at-home mom. And one of our babies would cry, and Phyllis would go, oh, that's a tired cry. Oh, that's a hungry cry. Oh, that's a dirty diaper cry. And I'm like, sounds like a cry to me because I worked all the time. I didn't know. I just couldn't hear that language. But she actually could interpret the language, pre-language. She knew what the little one was conveying. And that's all they're doing. They're just trying to convey a need. And when you tune into that need, you meet the need. And we don't ever tell them to stop it. But unfortunately, we do once they're somewhere, whatever, about 3, 4, we start telling them to stop conveying. Stop your crying. I think I've shared that before, that my parents were, you stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I always thought, I'm not crying as a hobby. I already have a reason for crying.
You already spanked me.
Yeah. So, and I never said that or wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at my parents about it. I think they were doing the best that they knew. But that didn't help me in the end. It simply trained me. And I said something in a session, I think I shared that with you, babe, that that may be one of the things that led me to being so dang funny. That I did not know. The only way I knew how to cope and survive was just be funny. And that will distract the other, which would include my parents or my older siblings. And so, we always say there's an upside and downside to everything. So the upside of all that wretchedness was that I just learned to be really, really funny because that kept me safe. Mm. And if I keep people laughing, then at least I won't, suffer from them.
Yeah.
So. Can we go back around to, can you repeat what you said as far as, it came from the Barbie movie, but the human and the pain?
Mm.
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
Yes. She said that we are so uncomfortable being human and what comes with that we as humans create things. We create things like, she said, the patriarchy or toys like Barbie to fill us with things to help us be more comfortable. And Glenn, you say this all the time, that you believe that if people actually all use the connection codes around the world, like that you believe that wars could end. We create all of these other layers to our humanity that are hurting us because we are uncomfortable, sitting in the pain, sitting in the fear, sitting in the sad.
Well, and I think that's so powerful, uncomfortable and in the pain. Like we don't want to sit in it. And it's like, I think this is the right way to use this term. It's like an oxymoron. We are making it worse because we won't just slow down and sit in the pain. And, I don't know if any of you listeners have experienced like extreme grief. For me, I was 25 when my dad died. Prior to that, I had never experienced extreme grief. When the phone call came that said he was dead, my brain exploded. Like my inside of my body exploded.
Yeah.
And the amount of pain, I had never experienced anything like it. And my body remembers that. Yeah. So then fast forward many years, probably 30 years later. Is that the math about that? 25 to 30 years later, my mom is dying. I don't want to feel that pain again.
Right.
So I'm going, nope, don't have time for that. Don't have time to be sad. I was resisting and pushing, like Glenn goes, babe, it's not a time issue. You are sad. Nope, not doing sad. And it's like I did more damage by resisting that than if I had just sat in it. And then when my mom actually died, and I've really had to process a lot of shame around this, I felt joy that she was finally dead because I was holding on to or pushing away the sad for so long. I was exhausted in that I'm like, oh my goodness, now I can move on. And it's such an unhealthy way to grieve. It's like you don't ever allow yourself just to grieve and to sit in that pain and that sadness. And there's others who've shared similar stories where, it's like, I know eventually someday I'll grieve kind of, I've heard that more than once. And it's like the damage that is being caused in this moment because you're not allowing yourself to feel the pain. You're storing it in your body, and that is doing damage. And then it's like, I think we always think, well, someday I'll go on this long, by myself week at the beach and I'll grieve there. And it's like, that's a beautiful idea, but do it immediately. Yeah. Like not thinking someday, because for many people that someday never happens. Yeah. Or it's forced on you when your body shuts down and you have a medical person tell you that you're going to die if you don't deal with this. And then they do it, and it's like, wow, all these years now you've put that off. And it's because we're uncomfortable with the pain. We're uncomfortable sitting in the pain. And I know I've shared this on previous podcasts, earlier this year, I came to a realization that I have a really hard time with anger, finding it, experiencing it, naming it, labeling it. And it goes all the way back, and it all came out in therapy. I'm terrified of what anger looks like. For me, it's this big, black, terrifying hole that you have to go down into. And I don't know if I'll ever make it back out. And it's like everything within me doesn't want to experience that. And it goes all the way back to my childhood and memories that I have of my brothers fighting and hurting each other and being, just crazy physically with each other. And that was my black hole as a little girl that I now have to, come all the way back around and deal with. Yeah. And it's like, wow, how interesting that I have been so uncomfortable with the pain, with the anger, that I've wanted to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, totally. And I love that a part of that movie is talking about that very thing of that it is the pain, it is all of those things that make us human. And that is what makes us so dynamic and beautiful creatures. Yeah. And if we could learn, which is what we are over here trying to teach you through our Foundations Masterclass, through doing the core emotion wheel every day, that if you will identify those feelings in the moment and process them out, then you will be able to find those safety in that relationships and not feel like you are a Debbie Downer or have fake or not fake joy, but have to hide behind a front of joy. But you can show up as your authentic self in your relationships and experience what we were created to experience in the most beautiful way. And I think that the word uncomfortable, what she said in the movie and what we just talked about, I think it's fear. I think we have fear of the sad. We have fear because we don't know how long is this going to last. Right. Which is why we created this 4-minute tool to do it every single day, and it will help it. It gives this parameter to just get it out of your body continuously. Because if you're going in without a guide to your pain, it can be a dark and scary place. It's a dark hole. Where am I going to go? But this guide will help you get there.
Yeah, I don't question for a second that there's a lot of fear for a lot of people in that. A lot of it also is just unknowing. It's literal ignorance. They just don't know. If you'd said to me 30 years ago, Glenn, how often you get hit with shame, I would have said never, because I was swimming in shame. Does a fish know that it's wet? There's water everywhere. So I don't keep track, but I probably get hit with shame just as much today as I did 30 years ago. The difference is I process it in 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So it doesn't have a stranglehold on me. It has no talons in me. And now I don't care. And again, in so many Christian-oriented groups, like, oh, put shame to death. That's a horrible idea. We need to grab shame and figure out what's happening with it, get tapped on the shoulder. The message of shame is, you're presenting a lesser version of yourself. Good. I'm glad I got that message. And now I need to just examine it and go, how could I be better? Oh, okay, I could do this differently next time. And that's a 10-second process, not drowning in shame for 3 days. You just grab the emotion and go, what's the message? Somebody just sent me a text message. Let me read the message. Got it. I missed on that. I was rude to Phyllis. I was a lesser version of her partner. I can do better next time. And now I'm a better version of me because I tuned into the shame. And what I did 30 years ago is I resisted the shame. I was completely oblivious to it because that was overwhelming. I just didn't know what to do.
I want to, before we actually do the core emotion wheel, I want to circle back to the idea that even the joy, I think for oftentimes, we don't even know how to really feel the joy.
Yeah.
We say what we think we're supposed to say, like, oh, I'm thankful for my children, or at least I'm healthy. And we call that joy. But we really don't know how to tune in to true joy. Wow. Yeah. And part of that comes from not allowing ourselves to tune into pain. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And if we're not tuning in, if we're not slowing down and saying, what's happening with me? And for me, it's like, even in sharing just a minute ago about the anger, it's like, what's happening that I don't know? I don't feel it. I don't experience it. Well, it took me on a pretty long journey at the beginning of this year. Felt like a forever journey that got me to the place with a therapist sitting there going, what does anger look like for you? And I wrote it out, even to describe it. It was like a nightmare. Like I was in a nightmare movie, and I hate horror movies, won't ever go see them. And it's like, that is for me anger. And so it's like, who knows what it is for you as a listener? You may go, oh, I feel anger every day. It may not be anger for you. Maybe it's one of the other ones. But often we do have a struggle where we're like, I really have a hard time identifying that one. Yeah. And don't just give up on it because you have a hard time identifying it. Figure out what's happening with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Now we are going to go into our core emotion wheel, which is, this your first time listening. This is the 4-minute tool that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis created to teach you how to identify what these emotions feel like in your body, how to process them out, and it's just like this 3-layer amazing 4-minute tool. Allows you to connect with your partner, your best friend, your child. So it does all of these 3 really, really powerful things at one time.
Wow.
Cool. So good.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
And I'm actually going to start with anger. And it's just been probably today in some other conversations that I realized I feel anger that all the years we said we would take care of my mom, and for many reasons we were not able to do that at the time she needed us to, and now we're taking care of your mom. And I just feel anger in that, really do. Guilt. I feel guilt that I missed it with you yesterday. I was distracted, wasn't tuning in. Feel shame in that because I know how important it is to slow down, to tune in, to find out just what's happening with you. And I really missed on that yesterday. I think fear, and there's a joy part of that, but fear that we're going out of town again, leaving your mom. Your sister's supposed to be coming. Right. Yeah. Your mom doesn't do well when she's by herself. Just feel fear that that's going to get complicated and things aren't going to go well when we're out of town. Sad. Felt a lot of sadness yesterday because my nephew's birthday was yesterday and he passed away years ago. And so it's always that day, right? When as a family, we talk about him and we try to remember stories and try to connect with my sister to just be there for her in this sadness. So felt sadness yesterday for sure in that. Hurt. I think just hurt earlier today, when I mentioned just some of the logistics about getting out the door, and I don't think you were tuning in to me. And so I don't think you were hearing me. And I feel hurt when that happens. Lonely, I think sometimes traveling, my list gets kind of long of all the things in the house that have to be done and all the logistics of getting out the door. And usually I'm just like, babe, you need to pack, you need to pack, you need to pack. And where my list is way beyond just packing my suitcase. So I feel alone in that experience. Let's see, what do I have left? Is joy the only one I have left? Tons of joy. I feel it in my body walking on the beach with you. That's where we're headed, is to the beach. And so I can just smell it already. I can see the waves, hear the waves already. I love walking on the beach with you. We usually do that for hours and talk. And so can't wait.
Yeah.
A lot of joy.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think I get hit with guilt and shame. I miss so badly on just the logistical stuff. And how many times we've gotten somewhere, I'm like, I have no shirts, brought 0 shirts, or just so many fundamental things. I'm like, how's that possible? I packed my own suitcase and I brought 0 shirts. And it's just something that I miss on terribly. I'd love to think I'm better now than I used to be, but I don't know if I am. I feel some fear that I'm not. But and part of the problem is there's so much joy in it because you're so good at it, and it's really easy for me to just not even notice, and you nail stuff so beautifully, so amazingly, and then I just forget to tune in. I felt hurt yesterday morning with our miss.
Yeah.
We just missed each other, and I'm really thankful, a lot of joy that we know what to do next.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't do it perfectly, but it's just amazing the difference between now versus 20, 30 years ago. Feel some loneliness. A few sessions this week were so deep and just felt like a black hole. And just not sure that I was on point. Of course, we do so many sessions together now, which is always such a thrill. But some people in crisis, like this is they're turning to me, they're dependent on me, and it's up to me to either make or break for them. Let's see, and sad over a session yesterday that I don't see how they're gonna make it, which I hate to say, but it's really bad, and they're so far behind in the whole process, the whole relationship. Anger in that, because I'm like, dang it, we've got to get to people sooner. People are dying. People are desperate, and they don't. And so many people are trying. They're seeking things out that are so ineffective and that are so logistical, and focus on intention and effort, and they never get to the core. That really annoys me so much. I'm like, oh, come on. And I don't know how to change that. Make a governmental edict that you can't pursue bad plans anymore. Something I'm not sure how to make that true. Let's see. Of course, joy. Oh my God. Well, fear. Fear that I just shared all that because it sounds so prejudicial, but I know that the connection codes work because they're based on the human condition, and I don't want to be mean to people, but I'm like, man, there's a lot of bad information out there, and of course, tons of joy. But we're going away together. I would go anywhere with you, do anything with you, and I just love it. I'm so glad. I mean, so much. I was thankful when you were running your company because you're amazing at it. But I just love getting to partner with you in everything now. It's so spectacular. Love it.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for listening. If you were listening, you're like, there's a lot of background noise happening. Thank you for bearing through that. My 6-year-old starts kindergarten tomorrow, and his long-awaited backpack just arrived from the Amazon truck, and I can tell he was upstairs watching for it.
Forget this podcast. We're focusing on priorities.
He ran down, opened the door, grabbed that box. So, yes, thank you for your patience. If you have not already left us a 5-star review, please, it is super easy to hit the 5 stars and also just to leave us a comment. It is super, super helpful. And if you are like, okay, you have been talking about me this entire relationship or this entire podcast. Like, I struggle identifying my emotions. And when I do feel them, I want to run in the opposite direction of them. you need our Foundations Masterclass. It is the full framework of this system that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis have created. The core emotion wheel, that is powerful. That is the sauce, but you need all the extra ingredients to really get you to the other side of connection. And you do that through our Foundations Masterclass. There will be a link in the show notes with a discount code for 20% off using the term podcast. And we are so thankful that you are here. You show up every week, and we do all of this because
you need this.
You deserve this.
So let's do this.
Let's do this.